we can't tell here in this room whether we are moving or not. Now, that's a realization that goes back to Galileo and Newton, but it's an interesting one when you think of the consequences. And this is where I wanted to read you one paragraph from Stephen's book. It's what are the consequences of that idea encoded into Newton's laws that it is not possible to conduct any experiment to tell you whether you are moving or not with constant velocity, as we pretty much are, as we orbit around the sun at 18 miles a second. Certainly from minute to minute, we're essentially traveling in a straight line. What does that imply? He said, the lack of an absolute standard of rest meant that one could not determine whether two events that took place at different times occurred in the same position in space. For example, suppose a ping pong ball on a train bounces straight up and down, hitting the table twice on the same spot 1 second apart. To someone on the track, the two bounces would seem to take place about 40 meters apart. This is assuming the train is traveling at about 90 miles an hour, because the train would have traveled that far down the track between bounces. The non-existence of absolute rest therefore meant that one could not give an event an absolute position in space, as Aristotle had believed. The positions of events and the distances between them would be different for a person on the train and one on the track, and there would be no reason to prefer one person's positions to the others. Newton was very worried about this lack of absolute position, or absolute space as it was called, because it didn't accord with his idea of an absolute God. In fact, he refused to accept the lack of absolute space, even though it was implied by his laws. The notion of absolute space is demolished simply by thinking about a ping pong ball bouncing up and down on a train is a very beautiful one. So we demolish absolute space. Now, as far as I can tell, historically, no one took that particularly seriously. It is true, it is a consequence of Newton's laws, Galilean relativity,